keep charging for the shop.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to our cabaret act, which is dawn tonight.
Oh!
So I'll start straight away with public question time. And at this moment, Dawn is a member of the public. Do you want, so if you have 3 minutes just to say what you want to say, and then we'll come back to this item shortly in the agenda as well.
Yeah, so thank you very much for having me again. I've provided a report which tries to pick up on the points that were made at the last meeting. Hopefully it does, and we can get into a discussion about that at the appropriate point. But yeah, so just representing the civic and our ongoing plans and developments.
Okay, do you want to say any more at this moment, or come back to it during?
Yeah, whatever works for you, really. I mean.
Well, I think we'll do that then, and then we'll keep, some order in the agenda.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. So, just to ask people whether anyone. So the meeting is being recorded as per usual, and go onto the YouTube channel. Is there anyone else that would like to record the meeting this evening for own purposes? Apologies for absence. Chair.
No, everyone's here. I don't have any apologies for absence.
Thank you. And of course, we've got the continuing dispensation.
We have the continuing dispensation for Councillor Firth I've spoken to today and passed on the committee's best wishes to him.
Thank you. Item 48 is any personal disposable pecuniary interests in any items on the agenda. I know there's, who's going to tell us that?
Yeah. Well, the item on the civic hall is I'm the trustee on behalf of the council.
As per previous, sorry.
Similarly, being with Conway Library, where I'm a parish council trustee.
Okay, but these are not personal interests, these are all on behalf of the council. Anybody else got anything they want to declare an interest in that's on the agenda tonight? No? Very good. Receipt of any new disposable interest forms, anything to report?
None to report.
Okay, thank you. Items on the agenda to be discussed in private session. There is one item that we're going to suggest is in private session.
Yes, that's item 232459, the Gartside Buildings update, because it has commercial sensitivity. So that I'm suggesting should be heard in private session.
Okay.
So could we take a vote on that?
Yeah. Is everyone all in favour? Thank you. We were also going to talk about the order of the agenda tonight.
Yes, just to say, we have as a later item the budget for 2024-25. The reason it comes at that stage in the agenda is quite a lot of the items feed into discussion of next year's agenda. However, we do think it's important that all the members of the committee do get to have a say in that, and therefore we're proposing that should any items overrun and we get to 8:45 in the agenda, wherever we're at in the agenda we stop, and then you get the full 15 minutes on that item on next year's budget.
Okay, so everyone happy with that? Thank you. Okay. That's about everybody. You're looking quizzical. Misreading body language. Minutes of the last Service Provision Committee meeting, which was held on 18th September. These have already been circulated. We're noting these.
We're noting they've already been approved at full council.
So we're just noting that, okay? And to look at matters arising from those minutes, there are two items which Clark has highlighted. I've got one more that I'd like to bring up.
I've got several others as well.
Yeah.
So Youth work in the Home Valley Transport Scheme first. So we've received no response from the Home Valley Transport Scheme regarding completing the pro forma for the rolling grant. A little bit later in the agenda, when we come to the 2024-25 budget, one of the proposals to be considered is that that particular item in your budget line in any case will move over to finance and management, because it is a grant rather than a service that's being, you know, offered by the service provision committee, if you like. So that's just for you to know. The second one, youth work in the Home Valley. A big part of service provision budget is youth work in the Home Valley, as you know. It's not a separate agenda item tonight, but since our September meeting, a query was raised regarding the youth provision in Honley. And Honley Youth has had no provision in place, as I understand, but there has been a youth club running at the community centre on Stony Lane, run by Stephen Knight. Now, Susan Greenwood is aware that the grant given to Kirklees Youth Alliance is behaving on the idea that there will be a provision in Honley. And I know that I've had some communication from Councillor Bellamy and Councillor Kirkby about that, and I don't know if there's any further updates to give about it at this stage.
I've got a meeting with Susan later on this week.
So I can give a slightly bigger update. Honley Youth has been running under Honley Village Community Trust for a number of years, but a number of the people running it resigned towards the end of last year. We've now got ourselves a committee, and we're in the process of applying to the Charity Commission for a charity status for Honley Youth. Once that's set up, the hope is that they'll all be set up and running by sometime in January, February time. And at that point, what we'll do is transfer the existing funds from Honley Village Community Trust to Honley Youth, and then we'll continue to work with Susan and Kirklees Youth Alliance to help provide those services in Honley. So Kirklees Youth Alliance will provide some services, but Honley Youth will provide further sessions on top of that as well.
Anything else you wanted to say, Councillor Bellamy? Nothing more to add to that, no?
No, I've just got a real concern because all of a sudden there were nothing at all because Stephen had shut because he'd run out of funds, but we have thrown a lot of money at it. So.
Does anybody else want to raise any queries on this or make any comment if you've anything else to add to this? I mean, just to be absolutely clear, our intention has not changed at all, which is that this parish council is still putting money into supporting youth work across the whole of the valley, including Honley. So it's just what gets sorted out really. Thank you for that. Okay, Joanna?
Lovely, thank you. And now, in terms of any other matters, item 232438, the report from the contractor. It was an action from the last meeting for me to write to Home for Food and Drink Festival and Kirklees regarding concerns and requesting portaloos for any future food in the festival. I'm still to do that, so I'm just informing the committee that still needs to be done. And also the action for me to investigate and replace the donations box within Home for Toilets with a theft-proof system. My intention is I'll bring a report on that to the Service Provision Committee meeting on the 18th of February. So to do. It could come up in a later item, but I'll also report now on the Friends of Honley request for a ceiling roof for one of the Honley stone shelters. That was investigated as a possible project for the Climate Action and Communications and Engagement Committee. The cost, the quote for installing a Sedum roof and the advice we've had from the maintenance contractor is not to pursue that because the roof could not structurally take the weight of a sedum roof. Now, having reported it back to service provision tonight, I will report back to Friends of Honley regarding that. And then also regarding the Hepworth War Memorial, the quotation that we have for the works for the repairs needed were far in excess of the £500 proposed at the last meeting. It was Tomlinson's who's carried out work for us on the Homefirth Memorial and were one of the approved contractors who provided us with a quote. It's £2,750. So I've been in contact with Reverend Griffin from Holy Trinity Hepworth, and one of the things which I'm going to do next is to contact the War Memorials Trust to see if there's a possibility of getting a grant from them for that work.
Thanks, Jen. Thanks for keeping me updated on that one.
That's perfectly okay. And then also regarding the sharps bin, this is item 232431 from the last set of minutes. I still need to write to the Kirklees Ward councillors to get them to intervene regarding that, and not yet got the valuation of the Civic, but once I have obtained that, I will email it out to committee members. And just to say that the list of assets listed by parish ward, that has been circulated to each ward councillor by email or paper form as requested. Okay, so
Thank you.
Can I just,
Yeah, thanks.
you mean 19th of February, because 18th of February is a Sunday, and I know that. This is my
I-
birthday, I'm coming on Sunday.
then I must definitely mean the 19th of February.
No commitment at all, again. Any other queries on those items as reported by the clerk, or anything else that you feel remain matters that should be arising from the last set of minutes that aren't being covered in this agenda? No? Okay, thank you. So we're moving on to, we don't need to go to any of that, do we? No. So we're moving on to Service Provision Committee budget and spending statements for this current year. This is not looking at our discussions about next year's budget. This is this current year. Rich, you want to lead us on this?
Yeah, so the year-to-date spending is fairly self-explanatory. I suppose it's useful to note there's a sort of percentage column on the left-hand side which shows you what percentage of that particular line of budget is used. Obviously we're 8 months into the year, so most of your budget lines are doing well. The only ones that are questionable are ones you know already, which is the Christmas provision and the churchyard. I know you've in the discussions you've had about next year's budget, you need to be factoring that in, and I know you have done. The only one I've kind of projected forward is the youth work in the Home Valley, because it has been committed already. So there's an £11,000 payment recorded, as you can see on the year-to-date report for January. So basically all their money has gone. In terms of the earmark reserves, the only thing I've projected is the CCTV payment to Honley Business Association, which I know next year the intention is for it to go to finance, but this year it will still be this committee's decision. And I suppose I'll be asking finance if you decide to have it as a rolling payment, whether finance will accept the right running payment or they want to look at that themselves. So I would welcome you. Looking at it as a rolling payment and then finance deciding.
Would that require a recommendation from us, do you think?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, any questions? If you've had the chance to look at this, this budget, Simon, any questions anyone wants to ask of the RFO? Anything anyone doesn't understand? So the fact that we're just about 80% into that budget, as you say, there's a couple of items that would be 100%, are 100%, and we can understand why. To you, it's not a concern that we're not 80% through the year, but we're 80% through that budget. That seems fine.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. So any further actions we need to consider, by the sounds of it, not, other than the point raised about, perhaps we should do this later on actually, the point about the rolling budget for the CCTV. Okay, we'll come back to that. Right, I'll leave that at that for now. Thank you. And we're looking at priorities and key actions. And this comes on, so this is a broad conversation really picking up on the briefing paper that was circulated, drafted by myself, and adds more meat to the briefing paper I had the last meeting in September, which was accepted. I can't remember whether we voted on it or not, but it didn't require any very firm decisions anyway at that point. But we're now moving to a point, particularly when we start to look at our proposals for next year's budget, obviously it becomes much more pertinent. So, do you want me to go through each of those items? Is that the thinking, or let's go later?
What we've done, Chair, is that the proposals are actually woven into the agenda items, and also it may well be where there are financial implications that whilst you might want to discuss them under those specific agenda items, any resolution about budgetary issues is saved for item 232466 when you consider your budget.
Right. So your suggestion is we're just noting this at the moment, discussing each of the items in more detail later on.
Yes, in general,
Under
that,
that one.
yes, because in the last meeting, the direction of travel set out in the paper was approved. That was the resolution from the last meeting. But it really is to whether there's any specific progress to report to date from the last meeting in September to this one.
Okay. I think all of that will come up on the separate items. Yeah. Okay. So we're moving on for now, and I would suggest in that case that we move on to the, I think it will be the civic hall item about next. So I need to suspend standing orders at this moment so that we can conclude Dawn in this conversation. You've received a report. I think there might be some further updates from Dawn in a moment to that report that's come round. Do you want to say any more on this, just to lead us into this conversation, Dawn?
Yeah, can do. So yeah, you've had the report I submitted, which tries, as I said earlier, to pick up on some of these points that were raised at the previous meeting in regard to capital works, what we apply for grants for, what it's possible to apply for grants for, the split of grants and so on. Just in terms of an update on certain things that were raised last time, and to give you an update on the condition plan and the management and maintenance report. So I've referenced in here that trustees had appointed both a structural engineer and a quantity surveyor. So they are the next stages of the development of the condition plan and management and maintenance report, which Parish Council have helped to fund. So we've already had the architect come and do his initial assessment. The next stage is to get the structural engineer in to do a thorough visit of the building and make an assessment about the structural soundness of it. And that visit took place last Thursday. So we had a structural engineer here for most of the day, going to all parts of the building that in some cases I haven't been into. So we even had, she went up into the roof above the stage in the large hall, which looks a fascinating space I've never seen before. So yeah, she was here all day, and she was with a colleague from the architect's practice who was particularly interested because he's going to be drawing up the drawings for the roof repairs. So those two aspects of sort of tandem running really. So we've got the structural engineer here to do the broader condition and management and maintenance report, but also the architect here to start on the drawings for the roof repairs, and it will be those drawings that form the basis of a tender spec going out to approved contractors that our architect has previously used. So just to assure you that both of those pieces of work are going on. The next stage is that the structural engineer will draft a report that will be put alongside the assessment that the architect did on his previous visit, and then between them they'll start to identify areas of priority, and that's when the quantity surveyor is roped in so that he can attempt to cost the priorities, so that by the time we get the final report it will be costed, at least at today's prices, and it will be prioritised in terms of this year, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, and so on. So there will be a very detailed plan ultimately at the end of the process. So I think that covers the condition report and the roof repairs. As I say, the plan is that we'll get some drawings relatively quickly. They'll go out to contractors that the architect has used previously, and then we can push forward and getting those roof repairs dealt with. It does seem that having had all the gutters and fall pipes cleared, that the water ingress isn't quite as bad. I'm not saying it's not there, but it doesn't appear to be as bad as before. So I think there was an element of water collection as well as seepage, as it were. But all of those things are progressing. There was a particular request last time about where the Civic are getting grants from, and I have included a breakdown in the report that I provided, which tries to identify and separate between capital grants, which are available for development works, refurbishments and so on, and also revenue grants, most of which were related to COVID. Not all, but a large proportion of them. I suppose it should be noted that grants generally are usually for project work or capital activity. There are some available for general running costs, but not many. And there are not many that are available for emergency repairs, because I think there's an assumption that you will build up your own resources to deal with emergency repairs and so on. So that's why they don't often appear in that list. They are more for revenue activity or capital works. There's a bit of an update on the finances. I think there was a query raised based on the accounts from 21-22 that were part of the last grant application we put forward, where the Civic at that point had reserves in excess of £100,000. It's safe to say we have no longer got reserves in excess of £100,000. We have reserves of about £15,000 at the moment, and that's a sort of a result of having been closed for basically a year, and only just really returning to booking and attendance levels that we were at prior to the pandemic. So we are operating a very tight budget at the moment. So that's a quick analysis of where we are, but happy to take any questions or discussion as you see fit, Chair.
Thank you. When I noticed, just as someone who uses the main hall, I noticed how much worse the floor seems to be.
Yeah, so just in terms of the floor, the situation with the floor is that, I don't know if you've ever walked around the back of the building, there is a void at the back of the building between the houses on Hightown Lane and the path, and then there's a long drop and a void before the building. One of the houses on Hightown Lane has got some drainage problems, and water is coming through the wall and collecting in the void, and the drain isn't able to cope with it. We've had the drains done, and within 24 hours the void was full again. So it clears away and then fills, and clears away and then fills. So Rich and the insurance brokers are in liaison with the property owner of the house, because that void is adjacent to the hall floor in essence. So part of the problem with the hall floor in the large hall is water that's collecting on the outside of the building and getting in. So the structural engineers were looking at that last week, and hopefully if we can get the drain problem sorted, I don't quite know how at this stage, but we'll hopefully be able to, at least when that floor's dry, we'll be able to see whether or not there's permanent damage or not.
Thank you. Councillor Ransford, did you want to say anything now, or do you want to wait until people have asked questions? And then...
I'll wait.
Yeah.
I'll wait, yeah.
Okay. Thanks. Questions? Thank you.
I should probably know this, Dawn, but this list of grants, you said this was over the lifetime of the Civic Trust, is that right? Could you
Yes.
just remind us how many years that is?
So the trust was formed originally in March 2017, so it's 6 years.
Thank you.
Anyone else got any questions at all, either on what Dawn's just reported or on the report that we've already got in front of us, which include financials and financial details? No, I've got a couple of questions, but perhaps anyone else? No? Can I just ask it is a bit concerning that in the capital grants there's such a large chunk over that time that Councillor Baffin was just asking about, which has come from the parish council rather from other sources. Well over, I haven't got a percentage, it's well over 50%. And the other, I'll ask the other question as well, and you might want to sort of comment on both, which is that the revenue, I mean, you said about, sorry, on the page 4 under finances, you said about showing a loss in the first half of the year. The figures are actually for the 3 months, April to July.
Actually, that's incorrect. It is April to September.
Is it right?
Yes,
Okay.
I noticed that
Right.
when I saw the papers that James
Yeah.
sent back. Yeah, that's a carryover from the last
Okay, so
report. I am sorry. That is
kind of
6 months. Yes.
But all the same, it's showing a £9,000 loss, and this is on operating costs. So this is because before we've kind of been led to understand, I think, that the revenue at least meets the ongoing operating costs, and the capital repairs and so on is a separate matter. But they're not meeting that, are they?
Yeah. At the moment, they're not. Now there is a timing issue to take into account here, because obviously April to September includes July, August and September, which are the quietest months of the entire year. So at the end of October, that figures down to £6,000 loss on the year. So I'm not saying it'll stay at 6,000, but we have our busiest period is between October and Christmas, but our quietest period is July, August and September. So of course, we are always in a situation where expenditure exceeds income in that period, because it's the summer holidays, we don't have any large events, even a lot of our regular hirers are not in attendance.
Come sit down.
So cash flow and income and expenditure are never sort of level, they're always a little bit like that. So as I say, to the period ending in October, that's down to 6,000, and by the time we get to Christmas we'd see it. So the budget we've set for this year is a break-even budget.
Thank you for that. Do you want to comment on my other query, which is about, I'm not sure exactly what you can say to it, but you know, it's a surprisingly large amount that's come from the parish council as a proportion of all your capital grants, you know, which I think there's a feeling, you know, is this sustainable? You know, which is something that I think, you know, we need to talk about in our budget conversation.
Yeah, I think.
There's something else you can say on that.
Yeah, I suppose what's worth noting is that most of the grants are related to refurbishments and developments of the building rather than repairs and maintenance. And so if we're not doing any refurbishments and developments, we wouldn't have applied for any grants. And we are trying to get those from other places as well, like the League of Friends of Garfield Weston and other places. So we look for where the grants are available, but you know, we certainly will be looking more broadly.
Councillor Ransford.
Yeah, I sort of, well, into the Civic Hall as a trustee through this parish. For the first few meetings, I've been very quiet of the trustees, but I was concerned that young Alex Bray inherited the chair, and in a sense he took, using a rugby term, a hospital pass. Because I get I've got the distinct impression that the City Hall has not been led from the trustees to any distinct, well, there has been a lack of leadership. When I joined, there was no maintenance scheduling, and that should have been done from day one. Everything is sticking plaster, and we need money from this to do this. There's no maintenance, there's no development schedules. Alex Bray has brought an accountant onto the trustees, and he's raised a red flag about the finances, and that's really very worrying, because we were given the impression that finance was not really a problem, and it is a problem. I'm not an accountant, and I don't understand accounting, but when an accountant tells me that there's a red flag, I get worried. And I'm concerned that the trustees have not been well led up to this year. And I think poor old Alex has got a job on his hands, and I don't envy him. But I think we have to give him as much support as we can. But I am worried about the lack of strategic direction that the trustees have had for the previous 6 years. I don't think, from what I understand from talking to a previous trustee, that there was any sign of worry in the previous years. And that's concerning. So that's my feelings.
Presumably when the accountant reports, obviously that is to the, a report to the trustees, but I'm hoping that, that the key points can be shared with this committee subsequent to that, because we obviously have a very big interest in this.
Well, yeah, I mean, Alex was going to, I presume, come back to Dawn and the staff to talk about it. We now have 2 members of the trustees who actually are the direct link between the staff and the trustees, whereas previously there was no formal link at all. Everything was just, well, play it by ear. And you can't afford to run a building like this, playing it by ear. You do need distinct and formal linkages. And there hasn't been any of that. I think it's a shame. I think the parish council has probably been misled over the previous years as to what's going on with this building. Which, I don't like saying that, but I think it has to be said. Which I think is a shame, is probably the wrong word, but that's a polite way of putting my feelings. Because, as I say, I entered thinking that things weren't, okay, COVID was bad, but it was, everything otherwise was looking good. And I'm not sure this is looking as well as it ought to be. That's about it.
Thank you.
Could I just ask, misled suggests a will to mislead. Perhaps another word, failure to fully communicate.
Yes, yeah, I mean, I'm not saying it was a deliberate misleading, but there was possibly a lack of communication, a lack of understanding, and that's fed down the chain.
As one of those previous, as one of those previous trustees, I am certainly, I think it was more a lack of understanding, really. I became gradually aware that the civic was, as far as I could see, a bottomless pit and would ever be so. I'm not sure whether that is true or not. I think COVID didn't help because people didn't meet and what have you, so that helped people to take their eye off that ball. I think some of what you say is true, that we have failed to recognise the ongoing and for many years to come need to properly support and support the team in their effort to start timing what has to be done when and anticipating problems.
Thank you. Councillor Dixon.
I think when we took on the City Hall, we took it on because Kirklees wanted to offload it because it was losing money. And I don't think it was being very well run then. It's being run better now, and it doesn't seem to be losing any money according to the current costings on the day-to-day basis of what's happening. And if they are raising half of the grants or 40% of the grants from other means, it's not that bad because there's quite a lot of money that they need to get in, and everybody else is trying to get grants and funding from somewhere. And we're quite convenient because we're nearby and we can raise money for them. So I suppose it's a good, easy place for them to go to get grants from us, but there is other sources, and if they keep on doing it, I suppose 50-50 is not that bad. It does look like a lot of money, it is a lot of money, but when we took the building on, we took on the responsibility to do this and to keep it running. And if it day to day is breaking even, it's progress. There were some years where you had a bit of surplus, you were doing well.
Prior to COVID, we were.
Yeah.
We were doing surplus every year, that's correct.
So, and things are looking good with the other events that you've got coming in and things like that. So, I am positive about the future, about us starting to come back to a surplus. And the other thing as well is like cost of living as well. All the bills and everything cost more now. It's all gone up. People have got less money, so they can't afford to spend as much. And it's like, do we hike up the room rates and do things like that? No, we don't really want to do that because you want to keep encouraging people to come in. So, what I'm getting at is it's difficult, and it might not be great at the moment, but it's kind of like what we should have anticipated when we took it on in the first place.
Thank you. That's a bit.
Just that I actually agree with a lot of what Tom's just said. I mean, I was here in the very beginning, as was Tom, and we did a lot of work to do the asset transfer. But we did know back then that, you know, there were a lot of stuff that we were going to need doing. We knew Kirklees had let it just basically go to rat and ruin. And I think we did go in with eyes wide open, knowing that was going to be the case. But when all said and done, it's the parish council that actually own the building, not the trust. The trust runs it. So I think the 50-50 basis of the grants, the capital stuff, which I mean the capital is always, if you can kick it, it's capital. I think is quite a good deal, to be honest. You know, we could be responsible for it all if we didn't have a trust running it for us. Because we can't get the grants from anywhere else, and that is why there is a trust that runs it. And plus, we haven't got the time. I don't think any councillor here would have the time to actually do what the owner of the trust do.
Councillor Green.
The question I would ask from people who've got longer experience than me is, so the physical structure of the building now compared with 6-7 years ago, have we seen an improvement, or has it declined over that period of time?
I'd say it's improved.
Yeah, I think the actual hall itself, the appearance, they've done the toilet stuff, there's the office space, there's other things that are happening, there's the leakage bit out there, but that's been leaking since about day one, since we took it on here, hasn't it? The buckets outside there then. So I think it has improved a lot, and it's definitely going in the right direction, but it costs money.
Yeah, absolutely. So my comment then would be, as Councillor Bellamy said, it's a responsibility that previous council took on, and it is a financial responsibility, and it is a big financial responsibility, and well, we either have to accept that or think of a drastic alternative.
Who knows what would happen to it if we hadn't have done.
One thing I would add is that there's one area of shortfall from our original business plan, because our original business plan included quite a large contribution from the land charity towards the maintenance of the Civic Hall, and in theory that sounds like a great idea, doesn't it? But as a charity, we can't give money towards ourselves and do that. So that did leave a big shortfall in the funding for these things, and probably why a lot of it tends to come from the parish itself, rather than come from land charity funds and other sources. So if that had been the case, we probably wouldn't have needed to use the precepts in all them areas. But it's one of those things we didn't realise that at the time when we did the business plan, and it's something we got wrong. But I think 6 years in, I don't think we're doing bad. And the trustee is still going. There's been quite a few big turnover of trustees, lots of different people involved with it over the years. People will come and go. But it's still going. The Civic Hall's still running. We're getting events going. So I think it's been a success so far, but everything comes at a price.
Thank you. Did you want to say something else?
Yes, I think the work, the contractors that are coming, or the consultants that are currently being employed to look at the building, it's a shame they weren't called in 6 years ago. And I think that's what we should have done. Because to answer Councillor Green, is the building better now than it was? I don't know. Because we don't know whether the roof's deteriorated with all the water ingress that it's had over the last 6 years.
Yeah, that's my concern.
That's a good
And we
point.
don't know the damage that's been caused by the ingress coming through from the well.
From the moat.
Yeah, we just don't know what the damage is. And so our day one is actually this year, not 6 years ago. And that's my real concern, that as a listed building, this survey work should have been contracted on day one rather than 6 years down the line. And this is why I say I think I'm critical of the previous leadership of the trustees for not actually doing that. Because as an old building, that's what you should do. You know, if you buy an old house, first thing you do is get structural engineers in to look at it and tell you what's wrong.
To be fair, and I think, Dawn might want to say something about this, I mean, my understanding is that with this survey that you are undertaking at the moment, it's got two big prongs, isn't it? One is about looking at the current condition, but the other is looking at the potential for future development and increasing revenue, etc.
I fully support the current programme, but it's a shame it wasn't done 6 years ago. That's really my major complaint.
Yeah, but we are where we are.
Yeah.
Councillor Blacker.
There's two issues here, I think. I mean, the first one is obviously this building belongs to the parish council, and and it was known when it was taken on that it was going to be a drain on resources. Nobody knew quite how much, but so that's one issue. So I think it's probably quite reasonable that the parish council is contributing approximately 50% of the funding to it, and will probably have to continue to do so. But then the other issue is about the accounts, and I am concerned here about red flags being raised about on accounts, and I just think perhaps what should we do about this? I mean, I understand that it's impossible to keep raising revenue by increasing the hiring, because it has to provide a service really for local people. But we really need a lot of transparency, I think, about what actually is happening with the revenue, with what's happening with the revenue, and just how we go forward with that.
That's a great.
Yeah, I was going to ask this accountant, has he put a value on the red flag? I mean, what exactly does it mean?
Was it an investigation at this time?
Well, he was going through the books, and he would have talked to Dawn because he had trouble understanding or interpreting the auditing, the bookkeeping audit that's undertaken at the end of each financial year, and he was concerned that there seemed to be discrepancies between figures. Let's put it like that.
Right.
And I say, from his point of view, he was unhappy about how things were presented, and for that reason, he gave.
Councillor Randall, can I just interrupt just for a second?
Just to say, I mean, part of maybe what decided is to receive the report from Dawn. Obviously, Dawn's here as a business, new business manager, but also she's a member of the public. I would suggest the committee might want to take a vote on going into private session. We don't hear any more, but before before you do that, whether there's anything you want to further ask Dawn before you go into private session, because what you're talking about are commercially sensitive issues.
Okay, I'm going to put that to the vote as to whether we go move to private session at this point for the reasons that Mark's explained. All in favour?
Assuming we've finished questioning Dawn.
She's not guilty of anything, is she?
I said question, not interrogate.
Yeah, so in that case, if you're going into private session, thank you very much, Dawn, for your report. I think that's the end of the questions. Jenny and Malcolm, can I ask you to just wait downstairs?
Yes, of course.
in the foyer? And I'll come in, one of us will come and get you.
If I could just add one other point about income expenditure. As Tom rightly said, prior to COVID, the Civic Hall was delivering surpluses. Since COVID, it's been really difficult to get income levels back to where they were prior to COVID. Not only because it took us a long time to get bookings back to the same level, but more importantly,
We need a light. Jenny cannot go down there in the dark.
Hold on.
That light should be on for every meeting.
it was on when I came up. Somebody must have turned it off downstairs because it was on when I came up. So, firstly, because it's taken us a long time to get booking levels back to where they were before COVID. But what's taken a lot longer is to get attendance levels at those events back to where it was before COVID. So each event has delivered slightly less income because there's been fewer people there. And what's also impacting us significantly is energy costs. So our energy bills have trebled, even with doing lots of changing contracts and making sure we're seeing out the long term, and we've done lots of energy efficiency stuff. So at the same time as income's sort of only slowly getting back to where we were before COVID, a lot of our expenses are a lot greater. So that might be some of the income and expenditure flags that the accountants raised. They're certainly things I've discussed with him.
So it could be some years before we're running on a break even. I know you're budgeting for break even, but it could be a while.
I don't think so, because we have now got attendance levels back to where they were before COVID, and we are more or less at attendance levels back to where we were before COVID. And because we're running our own bars where we make significant surplus out of those types of events, hopefully it won't take. But yeah,
depending on energy costs.
As long as energy costs stabilise, then we'll be in a much better position. But that is a real killer at the moment, for sure.
Dawn, thank you for your attendance.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for your report.
No
and I
problem.
also end this, I don't want to end this, for you on a negative note, because I think we recognise as a committee the challenges that you and the trustees are facing. And I also want to again repeat what I and we have said before, which is, that there is, you have a vision for the future that you are trying to pursue, and we know the work that's going into that as well. So I want to end on that note.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Folks, let's get back to the meeting. So, firstly, apologies that we had to exclude you for that item. And you climbing up and down those stairs. Lovely to see you both. Thank you for coming. As everybody knows, Jenny and Malcolm, friends on the library. We're all friends up on the library. So, you've given us a report, which we appreciate. Would you like to make some comment first before we get into conversation about that report at all?
No, don't do much there.
Well, in general terms, the report, I think, says it all. We have been very busy.
over the last few months, very busy. And it's good that we've got a lot of the outstanding repairs sorted out. And we can look forward to the future really in terms of improving the library going forwards. There's a small amount of outstanding work, which is 3 windows to replace, and that will be done, I'll check tomorrow actually, but it should be done before Christmas in terms of that. So once that's done, we have effectively covered all the bases and all the recommended works, which were pointed out in the, set out in the structural survey which was carried out back in 2018. So, and obviously that, there's a lot of work because of the backlog maintenance requirement, and the lack of work carried out by Kirklees. So we are very much looking to the future now. We do have an ongoing programme in terms of planned maintenance, which will keep rolling forward. But the key element for us now is to consider and hopefully get your support for extending the library. Do you want to say something on this now?
Yes. If, obviously, as you are our landlords, in effect, with the lease, we will need your permission to go forward with any plans to extend the building. Obviously, we will need to release funding for that, and we have applied to the government, to the Community Ownership Fund, and as it says in the report, we were very pleased that we got through the expression of interest, and we've had a further Zoom meeting and been told that they like what we want to do, and they will give us 6 days of input into the application, which, as you can imagine, is quite a task. I suppose the thing that you will want to know is how are we going to get the money? Well, if we get the money from the Community Ownership Fund, we would have to find 20%, and we still don't have a costed plan yet, obviously, because we need your approval before we get to that stage. But we do know that some of the pro bono work that we've had done can be counted towards that, and we've set up a small team who will look at this major Community Ownership Fund, but then we will also look to other trusts and foundations in the hope that we can go to them and say, depending on us getting this money from the Community Ownership Fund, will you support us? And I know that that can work. And we'll also look to perhaps doing a local fundraising as well.
Thank you. I don't know if people here, certainly the invitation has been there from the library to go along, for people to go and have a look at the plans and to discuss them. And there was actually, and I certainly went along, I know other people did as well. It was incredibly helpful to me to hear that and see the large plans and so on. And you also actually held a public event, didn't you, as well? Yes. Did you get a reasonable amount of...
Yes, it was very busy.
Was it?
And we really got a lot of really good feedback. We've been so lucky. I know this is a minor thing, but we seem to have, as at the moment, a lot of support from within Honley. And in the children's section, there's a blank wall above some shelves, and there's a local artist who came in and painted the most wonderful mural of, if you know it, if you got The Hungry Caterpillar, and it just says hungry for a good book and the caterpillar, and the kids love it. But she did all of that work and would only take, and it was 2 full days, and she just said, I just gave her £20 for her materials. So we have had a lot of local support, and people are delighted when they come in and see how it looks, as you will.
Yeah, yeah, I like it.
And there's a lot going on at the library as well, isn't there? I think apart from these projects and so on, and the repair work and so on that has already taken place in terms of the operating of the library and I mean, it's not about books, is it? Oh, not just about books.
No.
It's about so much more.
Yes.
The library there, which is brilliant.
Well, it's can I just say, it's not just repairs we've done actually. We have carried out insulating works,
Yeah, sorry.
which links into the report which was carried out by Pascale. And so we've already started that process. And in terms of the proposals we want to carry through, we want the library to be seen as an example in terms of how to refurbish an existing building to support energy efficiency, as well as obviously the extension will be extremely energy efficient, but the existing building, it would be really useful for people in the community to see what can be done in a positive way. So that will be built in. So, and these are hard copy plans, if we can leave those with you. Because you can't be easy looking at these plans on a mobile phone.
No, I think that would be helpful. I'm not going to invite too much detailed conversation tonight about those plans as such, because it can be done in another forum, I think, you know, when people can come and speak with you. Our reps, you're the rep on the library.
Well, there is a specific that we need agreement to, and that is we've got a problem tree. And it already interferes with the building from above, and that costs money to have it trimmed every year and whatnot. But there's a very high likelihood that it is about to interfere with the building from below as well. We don't believe it is yet, but it's. And I think there's a quote in your report from the survey saying, you know, that tree is going to be a problem. And we want your permission to cut the tree down. It's not a listed tree. It is our intention to plant at least 2 others in a place where they're not a nuisance. It's not a rare tree or anything like that. It is quite a pretty tree, there's no denying. But
and it's not the only tree in the grounds.
No, there's quite a few trees in the grounds. So we do need your permission to go ahead, because it needs sorting out before we get anywhere near applying for planning permission.
Just a second, I'll check.
Just to say, Bold don't need our permission to do things to the tree as such, or to even to take it down. What they do need, seeing is that is part of their plans, it's this landlord's consent. That's the key.
Yes.
Once they've got that, what they do with that tree is then up to them. And according to the plans, clearly that tree will have to come down, because otherwise you can't build the extension that is your preferred option.
But it'll probably have to come down even if the extension doesn't happen. That's
well, I
the thing.
think I think that's a different point, councillor, if I might say so. I think what you've got as a proposal in the agenda is about this landlord's consent, and that's the key.
Okay, Councillor Bentley.
I was just, more or less actually what Jen just said, but also, is it a conservation area?
No.
Right, that's fine. Because otherwise I get really funny about it.
It's a few feet outside the conservation.
Not really part of the tree, but just to let you know how seriously we take the environment. The plan that we prefer, the extension would have a living roof, and we would plant other trees.
Councillor Ryder.
I was just going to ask what's actually meant by landlord's consent. How sort of broad context is that encompass?
It's part of the lease agreement. It is part of the lease agreement, and in order to make major alterations or indeed an extension, then they need to get the landlord's consent from us.
So do they have to keep getting a landlord's consent for things, or is it sort of, does it?
No, once it's given, it's given.
For anything?
For this extension, that he's had the opportunity to see the plans.
I don't see how we can give landlords consent when there aren't even any approved plans. There are just some nicely drawn up ideas. We haven't got architect's plans, we haven't got costings, so we can't possibly give landlords consent, but the tree won't wait.
The term we have to use is landlord landlord's consent.
So we give landlord's consent to the tree.
No, it's as it is expressed in the agenda, councillor. Landlords to approve, landlord's consent to be given to Friends of Honley Library with respect to plans for an extension in line with the lease established with Home Valley Parish Council in 2022. That's the exact wording you need.
Right.
Can we add to that then, our request for to be further consulted as this programme proceeds? Yeah? Do you think there'd be any?
I don't think there's any issue at all on that.
I wasn't expecting it to be given a few words. I'm just pointing it out there.
We need your permission so that we can develop the plans.
Yeah.
But at every stage where we develop the plans, you can be assured that as we have done, they will always be available for your consultation. Just in the same way that we obviously have to work with Kirklees Library Services, and they're aware of the plans at the moment, and they are very much on board. And we would hope to take you along with us in the same way.
Can I just add to that? We see it very extremely important that we have a strong relationship with the council in anything we do with the library, and you know this is part of it. So yes, that ongoing commitment is definitely there.
I think we're all very aware of how closely you have worked with us.
Yeah. I think I'm just clarifying that we may formally be giving this consent, but we're not just giving complete carte blanche and saying just crack on and we'll
build what you like.
You know, when it's really saying that. Councillor Blacker, did you have we've forgotten.
I could just propose a motion that we that we give landlords consent on the terms as it appears in the agenda.
Yeah, now we're going to do it, so I'll second that. There we go.
Yeah, I'd just like to make a point since I've become through the Parish Council trustee of the library. I think that the way they structure what they're doing, so they're structured through the trustees and through a management team to look after the day-to-day running as well as trying to provide future plans and where they want to go. I think that the whole structure of the way they've got things is excellent at the moment. It works really well. I think, you know, there's a small team as been alluded to that are looking at what happens in the future. But certainly there's plans in place to say what happens next week or the week after and the month after that. So it's not like everybody's taking their eye off the ball as to what's happening now. The future plans are very nice, and the hope is that will get developed. But I think it's a really good structure and it works really well at the moment.
Is there anything anyone else wants to say before we move to a vote on the motion? No? Thank goodness for that. Okay. So the motion is that we give consent to that. All in favour? Against? Thank you. That's carried.
Thank you.
These, I think, we're going to...
Yeah, okay. That's it. Is there anything else anyone needs to ask at all beyond that? We've got Jenny and Malcolm here. Yes, Councillor Morgan.
Okay, just while you're here to ask you, we're going in our community engagement group to make a flyer, a bit of a newsletter, and I'm tasked with telling the story of Honley Library. So do I have your permission then, just to talk about what your developments are and the activities?
Yes, if you
and
need
use
any
a bit
help,
of your website. Things like
yes.
that.
Mary's probably already written just such a thing.
Okay.
Saves you a job.
just send me an email or a phone call and we'll talk about it and I'll provide you with what you need.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for coming.
Or even Jenny. I don't know what I called you, Mary.
And I think that your door's still open for anyone else who wants to come and talk
Absolutely,
about the
anytime.
Yeah. Please.
Yes.
You do know there's a lift in there.
Yes, shall we go down?
There's a rocket
stairs. There must be a lift here somewhere.
Thank you.
I would just say, as with other items, the consideration of the budget related to Honley Library, we're going to defer for a moment at the end of this meeting. So, next thing, unless I'm mistaken, in which case I'm sure the clerk will tell me, report from the maintenance contractor.
I left my bag, I do apologise.
Yeah, just to say, apologies for the lateness of that report going out. It is a very short report this time because obviously it's a relatively short time span between John coming to speak to the committee on the 18th of September and now. But just to make sure that everyone has had that and is happy to receive it.
Noted.
Has everyone had a chance to look at it? It was only one page. Everyone else said it was just one page. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Thank you. So that's
Can I
noted.
Can I ask one question? One
Please.
thing that John didn't say, how big's his team?
I think it's a little bit fluid.
You've got, there's him and there's one other guy whose name escapes me at the moment, but I've got his phone number in here somewhere,
Right.
who basically do a lot of the maintenance work. There's John's partner Alison, it's Keith, that's who John's mate is, Keith. There's his partner Alison that does most of the cleaning of the loos. And then he's got a little team of people, I get the impression it might be 3 or 4 people, who will help out when it comes to unlocking and locking up the loos.
Right.
Thank you. Okay, so that's noted. Thank you for that. The Home for Public Toilets, do you want to say something?
Yes, just to say that John is attempting to get quotes for the work on the new flooring that was discussed at the last meeting. I think he's struggled to find contractors willing to step forward to do that, but he is getting that underway. When we have those quotations, one thing for the committee to consider tonight is when those quotations come in, given that your next meeting isn't till February, whether you want to have a mechanism by which you delegate permission to give the go-ahead for that work to maybe the chair or a small group of yourselves to look at. There is money for such works in that EMR 331 Gartside building has £5,000 in it, but obviously that would then need full council to give permission to access that money.
There's also a proposal to top that up a little bit, I think, too. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So that's noted. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to mention as well. You mentioned about making a tamper-proof money collection pot in there as well.
Yeah. So I did in the matters arising. So yeah, it's underway.
Yeah. When I was on holiday last week, I was in Scarborough and I was looking at where the lifeboats are. And on the lifeboat, they've got a really nice new building for it. It's really good. And on the outside of it, there's like a bit of a window, a bit of glass, and on there, the outside of it, on the inside, there's one of these contactless devices where you can go up to it with your card or whatever from the outside and just tap it. And I think it was £3 it paid or something like that. So we're in a walk around the boat and everything like that. But I'm not saying we're charged £3, but maybe we could look at some kind of device like that. So if people do want to pay contactless, we can have it up there and it'll be against the glass. And
I think this has come up before.
it was like maybe looking into how much they cost or whatever. And I thought it was good. I didn't have any cash on me, so I wouldn't have given them any money if I hadn't seen that. So it did enable me to do that.
I think it's very common in a lot of places to see that available for donations and so on.
Yeah.
In churches, cathedrals, and all sorts. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't make it, can you?
Okay,
It doesn't have a Skyrim.
thank you for that. Item
So we
58.
need to
So
propose
it's
what Jen
noted,
just said.
Yes, about the delegate. So
Sorry, apologies.
Yeah.
Okay.
I propose what Jen just said.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah, so
What's
is
the
it,
issue?
given that you delegating to the chair and the vice chair?
Yeah.
Because I think, you know, you're,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well,
Okay. Thank you for that. Item 58.
Right, so, just to say regarding other assets, the ward asset registers that have gone out to all councillors. I'm already getting really useful updates from councillors regarding benches in various other of the assets as well. So that's all going well, and I'm certain we'll have more accurate ward asset registers by the end of that process. The Hetworth War Memorial, I know that I mentioned that under the earlier item along with the Sedum roof as well. And one of the items that will come up under the budget for 2024-25 is a new budget line regarding war memorials. So, yep, I think that's all I want to say apart from the narrative that's in the actual agenda.
Can I also just say that, as it says, you know, the plan is that before next April, the clerk and I will look at drafting a service level agreement. But I don't think there's going to be any surprises in it. It will largely, I think, reflect the kind of report that we just had from John this time. You know, this is what he's doing, it's what we're looking to him to do. And I think the service level agreement will just pin it down. This is what we expect it to do, basically. Okay, but it will allow us to move on next year into a tendering situation where we can put a contract out with a spec. Okay, but that's the plan at the moment. Okay, it's delegated. Yeah, I might mess up on this.
Right, so there is a motion to consider delegating to the clerk approval of up to £500 per job for exceptional requirements for expenditure outside the specification, but within the annual budget, subject to Service Provision Committee Chair approval and notification to the relevant parish ward councillors, with the opportunity for comment from those councillors.
I'll speak to this, if I may, which is that the idea here really is that, you know, there are routine maintenance jobs which obviously we don't need to sort of know about, and I don't need to know about specifically, but it was looking at sort of larger or exceptional jobs, you know, that would come to the chair, but also to give the ward councillor some ownership of this. Also say, what do you think about this? Because you might have a view that it should be something different should be done here. And we're not just talking about repairing the back of a bench or something like that. We're talking about more major repairs. Now, I might have screwed up here because I put them out with £500 on this, and then it was pointed out to me actually there is already an arrangement whereby routine maintenance up to £1,000 can be approved by the clerk. So I'm not looking to change that particularly. There's a spirit here that I'd like to retain from this, but it's just actually getting the technical detail down. Do you have any suggestions?
Bring it into line and make it 1,000?
Okay? Is that all right?
Yep.
Thank you. I think, all in favour? Thank you. Passed. Right, moving on from that, I think private session for the Gartside building update. Okay, we're back in public session, minibus provision, item 232460. I'm going to be very brief on this. It's progressing well. I could go into details if you really want, but I'm going to be keeping you here for a long time tonight. Is that all right? Thank you.
No, we're supposed to consider an earmarked reserve here, not just note.
That can be under the
under the
finance.
budget. Yeah,
Okay.
we'll come back to it, I promise.
Okay.
Christmas tree provision, item 61.
Yeah,
Reports.
so in terms of new information I can give you about this, we've not yet been, although the Kirklees trees are ordered, we've not yet been invoiced about them, even though at the time they did say we would have to pay the very day we ordered them, but we've not yet been invoiced for the Kirklees trees. Kirks are not intending to raise their prices for Home Valley Parish Council. So the trees provided to the various villages by Kirks will come in at the same price as last year. And as everyone is aware, you're going to review Christmas tree provision at your meeting on the 18th of February. Or was that the 19th?
19th.
I don't know, I've got 18 on the brain, but there we go. So that's all just to note. Really.
Just to note. Can I also say that because I really am intending to try and sort this out for next year, as I've said previously, it is a bit of a mess. We need to sort it out for next year. So my plan is to, one way or another, ensure that I or we or you visit each of the trees once they're in place and genuinely understand what's the arrangements there. Who takes it, who manages it, how do they manage it, and because we're going to be starting to look at alternatives potentially for next year. And I'm not talking about taking trees away from people, but just say, look, who should get, should others get trees? Does that mean sort of cutting back on Kirklees, the full Kirklees Monty, and instead sort of looking at just providing a tree and letting them sort out the decorations and so on? We might look at grants. There's a few possibilities we can look at. But we need to understand first.
Planting permanent trees.
Or planting permanent trees, or getting recyclable trees, whatever it might be, yes. So I think, we can look at that, but we first have to understand what we don't already understand, what goes on in each case. Okay? So that's noted. Item 62 is the Sands Rec playground item, and there was a working group. Of course, this came out of the full council when it was discussed. It was decided that £15,000 should be potentially released for that particular equipment at Sands Rec. There was already a working group in place, which included myself, Councillor Dixon, Councillor Ryler, and Councillor Lyles as well as committee. We have been in touch. We haven't actually physically met. The meetings have taken place online between us. Do you want to? You've heard enough from me. Do you want to? Councillor Ryder or Councillor Dixon might want to add. Councillor Ryder, do you want to say something?
Just to say, we had by email we had discussions about where we go forward on this and the shortfall of 20,000. It was agreed. Well, no, it wasn't agreed. So the various options. Firstly, we could ask Kirklees Council to find that shortfall, if that was possible. Either the parish council or Kirklees Council could do some research to see if they could find some cheaper playground equipment. There was a suggestion to crowd fund to get the extra money, and also to do some consultation with teenage girls, asking them what it is that they would like. The consensus that was reached, however, was that we invite Kirklees officers to propose alternative equipment, as they're the ones that have the expertise. At present, we haven't heard anything back from Kirklees.
Not formally.
No, not formally, no. So the conclusion of the working group was to keep the 15,000 as an earmarked reserve for a determined length of time.
Yeah. Anything else you want to add to that at all?
It's a bit frustrating, really. That we haven't been able to really do anything and get anywhere, and it's as a working group. I don't know if we've got really good. We all agree on what we want to do with it, because don't really want a round bench there or something like that. But we want some kind of play equipment, don't we? But 15 grand doesn't get you much play equipment.
No.
It's crazy. So I don't really know what we're going to do. So I don't think 15,000 is enough. But I don't really want to spend 35 grand on the swing either. So I don't really know how to progress with this and what we're going to do. Hopefully we will come to some kind of conclusion on it, but it's a bit messy.
I'm not sure that Kirklees Council are going to come up with anything.
Yeah, that's what I think as well. I think they'll probably come back to us and say to us, these are the options, and there's not much else, and there's not much in your budget bracket.
So,
And then what happens to us? We're going to end up with 15 grand in the budget, which we're not going to spend on anything because it's not there for it. It's difficult.
Councillor Stewart.
Sorry, I'm still confused about the earmarked reserve. I thought that was 50,000.
No,
It was originally.
It was originally.
Yeah.
For playground equipment, not for this specific project, which is providing equipment for the recreational interests of the teenage girls.
So we've still got 50,000 in the earmarked reserve, of which we agreed that 15,000 was going to be spent at Sands, and then we've got 35,000 to be spent somewhere else.
At this moment.
but isn't the rest of that money going back into the general pot?
There's been no decision, no discussion.
No,
on that.
nothing's been agreed on that. So, no, I'm not going to offer it.
No, you're exactly right. There's nothing's been, well, unless the RFO wants to correct me, there's nothing. You know, it is as it was, still pending further conversation with the FNM and the full council. Councillor Blacker.
I was going to propose that this 15,000 goes back into general reserves,
Along with the
rather
rest.
than being hanging there for 12 months, unlikely to be spent.
Is there a seconder for that proposal?
I disagree with that because I think if something Kirklees officers do come back to us in the next month or two before February, we might have a conclusion. I don't know if okay then, so I propose that if we don't come to a conclusion at the next meeting, that it does go back into general reserves. But hopefully we will get something by then. Although maybe I'm being very optimistic.
Which next meeting, sorry?
The February meeting.
Our next meeting.
Yeah. Yeah, hopefully by then, Kirklees officers will come back to us and we might have a solution.
I'm not sure we will have a solution. at least we'll get an answer, won't we?
Well, I've been told off for being a pessimist in the past, so I'm trying to be optimistic.
This 50 grand has been earmarked for about 3 years now, and it could be spent on. It could be spent.
Sorry, go on.
I mean, and it was set aside at a time when there wasn't money from Kirklees hadn't got money to spend on playground equipment. Obviously, it's found a fairly large pot of money to spend on playground equipment, and has spent a lot actually in Home Valley. So you know, in a way, it would make sense to put the whole 50 grand back into general reserves. But maybe we need to delay a while before.
Because
But your
we've
proposal
already had more spent on playgrounds than we anticipated getting when we earmarked this.
I mean, obviously, our consideration at this point is just the 15,000 because we were tasked to look at that specifically. Your proposal is actually that goes back into general reserves.
Yes, that was my proposal. I'm not sure it was second. Oh, it was
Seconded. Do we have
There is
any-
a counter
But we've got a
proposal.
counter proposal.
which is defer any sort of further decision on this until our next.
No, to do what we said, but after. If Kirklees don't come back with an answer.
No, I think what I want to say is we're kind of hard deferring it till February, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Right. So I need to ask.
Vote on Tom's first.
Okay, thank you. Well, is there a seconder to Councillor Dixon's proposal? Councillor Bellamy, second. Okay. All in favour of Councillor Dixon's proposal, which is to defer this decision until February, but we're taking note of what was said basically tonight. All in favour of that? Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. against? 2, 3 against that. Abstentions? Abstention, not sure the maths is right, but anyway, we'll probably do that. It's carried. Okay, thank you for that.
You're at 1:45.
Yes, we are. Thank you for that. Thanks for that. Right, so we're going to move to the budget decision. So we're moving to item 66. I think that's right. I think we'll probably end up picking up the bits that we're jumping over here actually in this conversation as well. So, Rich, do you want to lead us in on this one?
Well, if you look at document H, which is the sort of projected expenditure for this year, and it's got like a budget planner, which I put in green. So green basically are the figures from the priorities report that Councillor Bailey did, and then some of the other budgets I've just rolled over essentially that weren't included in the report. So that includes things like the seats and shelters, the toilets, those kind of things. I think they're going to probably be in budget by the end of this year anyway, I hope. Most of the others are included in Councillor Bailey's report, things like the additional money for the War Memorial, the 10,000 for the civic. The biggest amount of money you'll see is money potentially going into earmark reserve, which is the little box underneath the budget line where we're basically asking for an extra, my screen is not very clear, is it an extra 43,000 or something like that?
43,800.
43,800, yeah. And then in terms of the actual budget, so we're looking for about an extra 10,000 on this year's budget. Last year was 108,000. This current year is 108,000. And clearly my screen is murky. And this year we're looking at 118,000. So I was looking for an extra 10, which is basically the civic money, I suppose. And the other two things are the suggestion to move the CCTV budget line and the patient transport scheme, because both of them are likely to be rolling grants, which the finance committee is doing more of now. It seems that it might be sensible just to move them over to the finance committee rather than sit with you and with a bit sort of anomalous. So that's where we are. So the committee is essentially looking for us to find, if all these are agreed, we're essentially looking for about another 50-something thousand pounds, which obviously will have an impact on precepts. It's going to be, it'll be hard to find that money from reserves. It's just not there. The only, as I've said before, the only potential reserves that you could use is the playgrounds money. So it's challenging from that perspective. But I think it's a great thing that the committee's got ambitions, and I think this is the great thing about this is that you've prioritised what you want to do. You've laid down, objectives that the committee want to do. It's so much more refreshing. I mean, you probably appreciate in previous years committees have kind of gone, just roll the budget over without really a plan about what was going to be used for. So it's really nice to see ambitions and costed ambitions as well. So well done committee on those kind of things.
Could I add in to that point about the Civic Hall, which is that to date there hasn't been a specified budget for this, or even an EMR, I don't think.
There has been and then there hasn't. It kind of went last year. It was a bit of an odd decision, I think, last year to remove it from the budget. I think they were trying to find money for projects that they were more keen on. I mean, I think the decision this year was that the Civic should be self-funding, which I think is was slightly misguided, seeing as the Parish Council owns it. So I think it's great that you're trying to build money in and you know, given what we're seeing with the roof, having some sort of contingency fund in the earmark reserve as well, to kind of have that kind of backup, I think is important.
So, could I just say, you know, in addition to that, the intention from my personal point of view is that money is built in, so we are specifying money, but at the same time we are capping money as well. Now, given some of the conversations earlier this evening, and some of the sentiment in the room, I think, that, look, this is our building, we own it, it's picking up on what Councillor Collins said, it's invest, you could see it as an investment for the future. There is that to take into account, but then at some point you have to put a number on that. And the question, how big a number do you want to put on? So at the moment, it's a total of 40,000 that's being proposed. The money, I have to say, for the Holiday Library is both pretty much the same as it was this year, I think, I'm not sure, but certainly it's what's built into our lease agreement with Holiday Library, which is £15,000. They had £15,000 already left over that they didn't draw upon in it as an earmark from last year, and that would remain available to them. So I don't think I'm going to suggest Holiday Library is not a big issue, but you know, you're welcome to debate it if you want. The Civic Hall probably is. I'll be quiet this one. Questions?
Yeah, can I? So if we have unspent funds from this year, can they just roll into next year? Is that correct?
Do you mean
So,
from this? I mean, this committee is going to be over budget, so there's certainly nothing within the committee's budgets to roll over.
What, I guess the reason I'm asking is because of the youth work in the whole valley. That's £25,000 a year, yeah. But that didn't start till September or October. So that £25,000 that we're proposing to give them another payment in January should last until September, October next year.
We've given them 14 and we're giving them another 11 in January.
But that's for 12 months for youth services. So in theory, we don't need to give them any more money until next. I guess.
Well, you'll still need to give them the 25,000, whether you give it next September or whenever.
But I guess my point is that their starting point and our budget don't align. So for example,
25 grand in 6 months is what you're saying.
Yeah. So giving them 25 grand, but you could almost say for next year, if you wanted next year's budget to run until the end of March, you don't need to give them the 25,000. You only need to give them another 12 or whatever, because they've got enough money to run until. Do you see where I'm coming from?
Yeah.
Is that, or am I?
So the committee last year
Yeah.
said in this year's budget, 2023 to 24, there'd be 25k for this service from Kirklees Youth Alliance. The reason it's not been available to them until now was because they weren't able to meet these specifications the committee put in place. So in a way, they're late getting that money, but it's still a year's worth of money.
Yeah.
But it will start to get, the budget starts again from 1st of April, and they're, in this budget proposal, they've got that £25,000 from the 1st of April 2024 to the 31st of March 2025. That's how it will run.
If they meet the reporting
yes.
and the kind of the objective reporting agreements, basically.
So we're saying they have to do a full year next year on the same money they've done about 8 months this year.
Yes.
I don't think that's what they're intending to do. I think they're intending to provide 12 months worth of youth facilities, which will run until the end of September next year on the money that they will be given after this year's budget. But I mean, we've got a meeting later this week, so we can probably clarify that situation. But all they've got money in their back pocket when we restart this budget, is all I'm saying. And the two don't align up, and we could align the two up by not giving them the 25,000 next year, just giving them 12, and saying that money is to run until the end of March, and then we'll consider again what we do for 25 to 26.
I think it would make more sense to get them in line with our financial year, not the other way around, to be honest. But I mean, but to make them aware that this money stretches up, and tell them, you know, make them very aware of how far this money has to stretch in terms of time. Yeah.
It would look very messy with our budgets if one year we're doing 12,000 and the next year we're doing 25,000, wouldn't it?
Could I just could we take this on board and ask, you know, that we investigate this? You said that you will speak with them, and if you could perhaps liaise with Rich over
Yeah,
this,
that's
is that all right? I'm not sure, it may make a difference to what we think in terms of budget, but perhaps not the decisions as to what our priorities are, and so on. Can I ask again about the Civic Hall? How much do you want to comment on this? In terms, there's a proposal basically that there will be £40,000 available to the Civic Hall, of which is actually divided up as 30 in an EMR. It will be 10,000 budgeted for towards their development, which is not a huge amount, I acknowledge, but it's 10,000, and there will be 30,000 set aside in an EMR to be called upon if need by them for repairs and so on, which I'm damn sure I'm looking into. But that's a kind of split. Councillor Conning.
My question is that sufficient? It doesn't look like anything large enough to me. I mean, I'd have thought it's probably nearer 100,000, and that's a guess. I mean,
not for the next year though.
Well, but it's going to be more than 40.
I think with the next year, they've already got budget in place for the plans of the next stage of the plans that they're going to do. So they're talking about doing the stairs, aren't they? And
yeah, but how much is the roof going to be?
But we've already given them the grant for that, so we've given them the money for that.
We already given them the
Well,
roof.
we haven't given it, but we've committed it.
Committed it.
Yeah. I mean, that's the first big payment we've ever had in terms of repairs. We haven't had anything else except, you might argue, the fire doors.
The fire doors will be easy.
That's it in however long I've been with the council. I don't think it's...
Okay, I take back
No.
So I kind of think like we need to have 30 grand in there. That's if the roof breaks down, which it has done. Have that in there for a rainy day, and then 10,000 is for general. If there is like small maintenance jobs that do need doing, then come to us and ask for that.
But there is the boiler though. I mean, that could go tomorrow.
Well, that could be 30 grand that goes for that, but does that buy you a new boiler for the here
No.
on? Well,
Nowhere near. It's a complete new system.
In terms of the boiler, I know that Councillor Green is going to be in touch with Dawn regarding possible grant sources to look at that. And that is, you know, sometime in the future. Sometime in the future. You've got these two proposals, haven't you? The earmarked reserve of 30,000 and the budget of 10,000. And that 10,000 does say improvement in development rather than repairs. Yes. So you know you need to be aware of that.
So that's a benefit.
I think that makes complete sense, and I'm sure right back in year dot, whatever it was, right back in the beginning, we did have something that was ring-fenced for civic. I'm sure Tom will remember.
It's probably been higher than that. It's probably been like 50,000 for.
It was
it's probably been more than that, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was more than that before, and I do think that does need to be there.
So there's a proposal on the table. There's two proposals there. We can take them separately. Is there a seconder for that? And is there any alternative proposals that people want to put?
Can I say I'm a bit worried that the architect and the associated consultants should be reporting back fairly soon on this building. And what worries me is what they come back with and the implications of their recommendations on any financial decisions we make today. And we really don't have a chance to change the figures.
In terms of these resolutions, they are all going to be recommendations to finance and management, which will then put a budget forward to full council for the 18th of December. So this isn't necessarily a cut-off point, in that clearly if new information came to light that had to be presented to finance and management, then new information would come to light.
Okay. Okay, I'm fine with that.
So there's a recommendation. Okay. Is there a seconder for the proposal? Councillor Morgan.
And you're going to take them together.
Is it okay if we take these two together, because basically they boil down to the same thing?
Yeah.
All in favour of this proposal as a recommendation?
Sorry, just one last thing. There's play areas on here. It's weird that.
Is what, sorry?
Play areas.
No, I'm just on back to Civic Hall at the moment.
Oh, right, Civic Hall, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at the whole budget.
No, Civic Hall.
Yeah, sorry.
All in favour? Against? It's carried. Thank you. I'll go back in the same thing in terms of the Honley Library. So this would be that we would, the recommendation is a budget of 15,000 is agreed in line with what we actually have in our lease with them. It could be more, of course, but, you know, so in other words, it's a minimum of 15,000 according to the lease. We could be proposing more, but I'm proposing 15,000.
Yeah. Oh, second that.
Councillor Dixon, all in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you.
So we'll do the EMR as well.
And we maintain the earmark reserve that's currently there. So there is a reserve that they didn't call upon in this current year. They have called upon other monies, but they didn't call upon that. My proposal is that, you know, we shouldn't punish them by taking that away because they haven't drawn upon it.
They're likely this year to need for architect plans and planning
Yes,
commissions
absolutely.
and stuff like
Absolutely.
that. And doing the
So do we have a seconder for that, to maintain that EMR?
Is that Honley Library?
Honley Library still, sorry, yes. All in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. It's proposed that we recommend a new budget line for war memorials in next year's budget, with an annual budget of £500. As I've said before, as Jen has said, you know, basically we have been spending it anyway. We just don't have it set aside. So it's to create. There's a fair chance we would end up going over budget for this anyway. But I'm proposing at this point up the budget of £500. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Ransby, all in favour? Any against? Carried. Thank you. So consider that a new EMR is established to support transport strategy with an assigned reserve of £5,000. This is not, I have to say, I mean, I've written about this in the briefing paper. We already have an amount, just so I don't confuse people, we already have an amount of 23,500 that we spend with through WICA actually on the stops buses. There's no proposal to change that. This is about another EMR to help support promoting the use of public transport locally and so on. But it will be subject, it will come back with recommendations, I'm sure, from the working group. Does anyone speak against this before we move to a vote? Do I have a seconder for that proposal? Councillor Morgan, thank you. All in favour of that? Against? One against, thank you. That's carried. That we consider increasing the annual budget for the New Mill Close Cemetery to £750. It's currently, I think, Rich, £500, and it gets over. We go over budget every time. But as I've said in the briefing paper, we're looking to try and bring this under control. is a tricky area. I'll suspend standing orders, by the way, this afternoon as well. Is that okay? Everyone in favour? Hopefully I won't keep you too much longer. So this is increasing the annual budget basically to reflect a bit more of the reality to £750. Was there a seconder for that? Councillor Bellamy seconded. All in favour of it, or does anyone want to ask any other questions on it?
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, please.
I still don't understand, there was more than one closed cemetery in Home Hollow. I still don't understand why we're responsible for that one.
Okay. We can give an explanation for this. I didn't either, and I now do know.
We popped up 40 years ago.
My understanding is that we're probably quicker off the mark in terms of getting us to commit to doing it as per the legally there is a responsibility for us if we're asked to do it. Is that your understanding, Councillor Dixon?
Yeah, 40 years ago we were supposed to say which ones we didn't want to look after in the marketplace, we'd take them all on. And for an admin reason or something like that, we didn't mention New Mill. So that's what was for some reason.
Yeah.
It's something like that, isn't it?
Yeah, people forgot. And that already, so I'm stuck with it.
Yeah, but like, it really should get passed back to like the police, because all the other ones, there's loads of other ones which are done by them, so it's stupid really.
We are where we are. Yeah. Okay.
Can we not change it?
We can.
We should ask, what's the worst that could happen?
Part of the I have to say, part of the plan for this particular project of bringing it under some sort of control is that we do actually, and that Jane actually talks with relevant officers at Kirklees about how they control their budget on this as well, because you know, and don't just say it's a free for all.
Yeah, and what is their budget?
Sorry?
And what is their budget for this cemetery? Well, is it more or less than £750? Interesting to know.
It'll be more.
I'm sure Councillor Bellamy has it straight off the top of
No,
her head.
I'm just trying to think. Cemetery budget will be a lot more than that, but it will be all
For a lot of
involved.
cemeteries,
Yeah, the thing is, it'll all be in one, so it'll be one amount for however many there is across the whole of Kirklees. So, and each cemetery is a different size, isn't it? So you're not going to get a breakdown of exactly how much it is per one.
Can I move on for this? I'm conscious of time. Sorry, I don't want to. I mean, we'll talk to you further about this if you like.
No, I've asked that question about half a dozen times and I've got an answer tonight, so
probably,
I'm going to ask it
get
again.
up the script to go and do the other church.
Historic.
Yes. To consider that an earmarked reserve of 3,800 is assigned to the management of dog waste and public area litter. I really would wish I had longer to talk about this, but it was in the briefing paper. The thinking here, and we haven't got a working group together, no, Councillor Stewart, you expressed an interest in dog poo as much as I did. In a nutshell, this is about us as a parish council being able to have some influence and impact, if we want to have it, on the arrangements in our valley. Now we have to work in partnership with Kirklees on this. They're the ones that empty the bins. We probably end up purchasing through them if we did get any more. But we're thinking about things like, do we want to do more in the way of sort of recycling bins that are around? Do we want to respond to local concerns about how dog waste is actually dealt with and so on? What do we want to do? The idea of the EMR is actually to, so there is some money around that could be drawn upon. An EMR, as you know, would still require us to, if there are any recommendations, to come back for approval to have that money released. So it's not handing over a cheque if you like to just do it. But the proposal is that 3,800 would take us up to a total. We're currently spending £1,200, or we have a budget for £1,200 for dealing with dog waste and so on currently at the moment, which is basically the bags. It's a proposal. Councillor Bowman?
You'll never ever get dog waste bins. Never in a million years.
No,
Kirklees won't deal with them whatsoever, because it classes clinical release.
No, there isn't a suggestion. I won't get into detail too much, but
Yeah.
you're absolutely right. There isn't a suggestion. The suggestion is actually we stay within Kirklees' policy on this, but there is a possibility we do better signage so that people understand where they can put their dog waste, because actually they can put them and do put them in the general waste. But I think they don't. People don't understand that. That's my personal view. That's something we can look at. But we'll come back to the votes on this. That's the proposal that we create an EMR. Sorry, we retitle that EMR that exists so that it extends more to public litter, public area litter and dog waste. We'll set up a working group, have lots of fun talking about this and report back and so on. But at this point, it's about potential EMR for this. Is there a seconder to the proposal? Councillor Morgan, thank you. I'll take a vote unless there's any alternative motion being put forward on this.
Can I just put that we leave it as it is?
You don't, that we don't extend
Don't-
into this
don't
particular
extend
project.
it now.
Okay. Is there a seconder for that motion? Okay, I'm going to take the vote then on the other motion, which is to create to extend this EMR into this area.
You're not extending it, it's a new EMR.
And you've retitled it, yeah.
No,
Okay.
you've got a budget line for, what is it? Street litter and dog waste, budget line 4720, and that's what's had 1,200 in it.
Yeah, no, that's a retitle of what was the previous.
Yeah, but this is a proposal for a new EMR.
Oh my God, yes. Okay, yes.
Is that right, Rich?
Yeah.
All right. In terms of the figures, we'll work out the same. Can I take a vote on it? All in favour of it? Against? Two against.
I don't think you actually did a vote on New Mill Close Cemetery in the end either.
Did we not, sorry? So that's carried. I'll go back to New Mill Close Cemetery. Did we?
I didn't quite got to a vote.
I thought we did.
Because there was a query.
Councillor Green raised a query.
Would you like to take it? I think it was interrupted. You do need to take it.
All right. Well, the vote on this is to increase the annual budget for the cemetery tip from £500 to £750. All in favour? Against? One against. Final proposal is about tourism special project. Again, I wish there was longer to talk about this. It's in the briefing paper. I'll take any questions on it before we move into.
I'm just going to be out
That's
there.
right.
Do you actually think we're going to get much tourism while middle of welfare's all dug up for 2 years? Because there's going to be a problem getting folk in and out.
I think we're talking long term.
I mean, you can put that, but I just think there's going to be some issues for the next couple of years while blueprints happening. Because I think we're going to have problems getting.
But that's not against the principle of this project.
No, but I just.
Yeah, and tourism is beyond just Home Firth, and I think in the whole valley. Councillor Dixon.
I think there's still be a lot of people coming to Home Firth. There's a lot of good things to come from, like events at the Picture Drum, the festivals and things like that.
The question is, I think.
They'll find a way. They'll find a way of getting there if they want to do it.
The question I'm suggesting is whether we play a part in this.
So how do we? What is the plan? Spend this money going to be spent on?
Well, it's an EMR to draw upon. And I think that's if you know there's an EMR there, we can look in more detail at some suggestions. I've got ideas about sort of QR codes around so that people who are going to places like City Hall and so on can zap the QR code and get a whole load more information. With lots of places with a town trail around that more can be done with. It's not us alone. I have to say Kirklees should also be involved with this and are involved with it. And of course we have tourism and library and so on.
I think with the blueprint going on and on the works going on, it's more important to put more money into tourism to get people to come in. If it's going to be problems with people on that, so yeah, I think it's worth it.
Any other questions before we move to a vote on this? Is there a second of the proposal? so Councillor Ransby, thank you. All in favour of it? Against? No against. That's carried, thank you. We're recommending to the full, I don't think we agreed, did we, but recommending, well, you know, so I'll pick up on what Rich said earlier, which is that we propose that oversight of the transport scheme budget line and the Honda CCTV budget line are transferred across to finance and management. I'll propose that. Seconder? Councillor Colling, all in favour? Thank you, that's carried.
Your final one, therefore, that's referring to all the next year proposed budget in the document H.
And the earmark reserves as well.
And the earmark reserves, yes.
Okay. Bear in mind, this is a recommendation.
Yeah.
You know, this is still to be debated, I think, at FNN and then full council and other things like it. But
So you need a proposer and a seconder.
Proposer and a seconder for a budget. Councillor Ransby proposing.
What?
For the whole thing.
The whole thing, yeah.
Yeah. As a recommendation, as I say, you know, this is not your final dibs at this.
Okay.
So are you recommending that we put Precept on there? Is that what you're saying?
I don't think that's for us to decide otherwise. I'll be corrected perhaps by the
Well, not really. But you are asked, you know, the plan does call on a lot of money, so we'll have to wait and see.
We're asking for enough for it to be raised as a question, I think, at finance.
Thank you for that. Okay. All right. So all in favour of that? Against? Abstentions? 2 abstentions. Thank you. Okay. So is that anything else that we think we need to decide upon regarding the budget?
That's good.
Thank you for that. Thanks for your patience with that. I'm not going to return to anything else that we jumped over because I think we've now considered them, which were the items next door and so on. So the final item here is items, and this Jen can tell me otherwise, the final item is items for publicity. Unless anyone wants to propose anything that specifically goes to publicity, do you want to delegate that to myself and the clerk to look at? I have asked, and I think the clerk has kindly included it on here, asked that going forward this becomes a two-way process, so that the assistant clerk will be feeding back to us as well about items that have gone for publicity that relate to our work as a committee. Okay, so it's a two-way thing. Thank you all. We can close the 9:17.
No, it's not really anywhere. It's I mean, from when it was set up, it was a bit of a mess.
I mean, it's not on there tonight, so
Yeah, it's not yours. I mean, I think because the working group which is included some of your members, basically. It's never decided to look after it.